Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of July 17th to the 23rd of 2023. Alright, so we have a lot going on astrologically here this week. We'll talk about the most notable things here in this intro, and then in a couple minutes we'll get into more detail with it. But first of all, we do have a new moon on Monday, so the brand new lunar cycle, and so great to set some new intentions for the new lunar month, and just recognizing that this is the lowest energy of the lunar month, and it's good to simply just connect a little bit more, maybe set some new intentions, and just slowly get that momentum building as we come out of that Monday time period. Along with this, we do have quite a few sign changes. We have the sun coming out of Gemini and going into protective Cancer. And so a shift of focus really coming from the more maybe practical and communicative side of things, going to much more of the emotional and protective side of things. It's really emphasizing that about for the next few weeks, it is good to connect more with that protective side, to create that safe and secure environment for ourselves and others, and connect a little bit more emotionally, and maybe even that nurturing and caring side as well. But Mercury has already been here, so we've likely already been thinking maybe a little bit more in tune with our past or our emotional bodies. But Mercury is starting to shift into Leo here around Wednesday. And so our mind's joining up with really Venus and Mars, who have already been here, which has been about perhaps enjoying a little bit more self-expression, fun, playfulness, creative energy. And so we'll likely start to be thinking a little bit more in this way, and probably also expressing ourselves, more through our communications as well. All right, so those are the sign changes. And then at the end of the week, we have a couple retrogrades. So Venus is going to go retrograde for about her month and a half retrograde that she does. And so around Sunday, maybe just pausing a little bit in the context of what we value. Venus is fundamentally about what we value and enjoy in life. And as a result, maybe reflecting a little more on relationships as well. So just a bit of a pause there coming up for that month and a half retrograde, where we could be reflecting a little bit more on those values and relationship needs of ours. Now, Chiron's also going retrograde. This is for about 6 months, very normal for him to do this time of the year. So maybe some things regarding healing that we can maybe take a bit of a pause with, maybe go within a little bit and start to reflect on. But that one we'll probably notice more so next week, as Chiron is quite the slow-moving planet. All right, so there's obviously also aspects with this. So let's go and take a look at all this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, July 17th. And as you can see, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. You will not see mainstream astrology using the visible sky because they're using, mostly in the West, a seasonal system. And so it's very different. You'll notice a lot of the sign placements are different. For example, I'm about to say that the new moon is in between Gemini and Cancer, and maybe you're expecting it to be in Cancer. All right, so if you are new, definitely check out that link down below for more information on true sidereal astrology. Okay, so we have a new beginning right at the beginning of the week, new moon, ending the previous lunar month and starting the new one. Again, good to do a bit of a reset and set some new intentions, right? Slowly build some momentum, recognizing that it is the early phase and the lowest energy of the lunar month. Now, it's going to be right in between Gemini and Cancer, and so in many ways we are finishing up with the sun leaving Gemini, finishing up a lot of the more practical, communicative, maybe even a bit of that social energy, whether you've been learning, synthesizing information, using your mind this past month roughly, or maybe more on the communicative side of things. Of course, that can still be going on, but the shift of focus will be much more onto the more emotional and protective realms of Cancer. So for about the next few weeks, good to focus on life in this way. How can we create this safe and secure environment for ourselves and others, and connect more to our caring side, our nurturing, and of course protective side as well. Now, Mercury's already been here, so we've been reflecting on the past maybe a little bit more, maybe just more emotionally influenced with our thinking and thought patterns. And so that can, of course, continue with the sun here, but we do have Mercury changing sign as well this week, which we'll talk about. All right, so that's the placements. Everything is definitely in the same part of the sky here. New moon between Gemini, Cancer, Mercury finishing Cancer, and of course Venus and Mars still in Leo. So it has been great to be enjoying life and even connecting in those relationships in a little more of an expressive and playful and creative way, whether it's through hobbies, interests, whether it's through pure self-expression or just a bit of fun. It's been great to enjoy and connect to life and really get things done in that way with Mars here as well. All right, so this is really the hallmark for the early part of the week is the new moon. We also do have Mercury squaring up to Jupiter there. So this is a sort of bit of a clash collectively between our more practical mental side and our more expansive abstract side. And so it's good to find a bit of a balance here with this. Sometimes with squares to Jupiter, we can go to a bit of an over or under extreme. So maybe a bit over optimistic, over hopeful, and then maybe the pendulum swings the other way and not so much. So good to be constructive, see that there are opportunities in life, there are things to be open-minded about, and there are things to, really expand our perspective about, but in conscious and constructive ways. And if we do it intentionally like that, constructively grounding those perspectives or opportunities or beliefs, whatever it might be, that's expanding there, then it becomes a great way of working with it. And it can be a great time to learn things, gain new information, philosophy, anything that, again, is more of a broader view of life, more abstract stuff, can be very constructive during this time. All right, and then as we start to get into Tuesday, again, the sun will start to then get closer to Cancer. And so then that shift of more of that protective focus coming out of that. The moon will, of course, also go into Cancer here for both Tuesday, all of Tuesday, and then going into Wednesday, the moon will shift into Leo. So Wednesday and for pretty much the rest of the week until late Saturday, we do have the moon in Leo. And so the bulk of the week will be on, again, cultivating some of that self-expression, playful and creative energy. And you can see we have a lot of emphasis here because Mercury is also going to, again, join up with these planets really right around Wednesday as well. So creative self-expression is what Leo is all about. Again, thinking this way, expressing ourselves in this way, maybe a little more fire behind our minds and our communications. And again, with the moon here, just suggesting that's a good time to cultivate that. And that can help assist the Cancer energies because Cancer being more about what's important to us emotionally, Leo wants to express those emotions and let it out and maybe do things that are more fun or creative or playful in life. So good to let out some of that internal energy into the external world, as we do have a lot of planets in Leo coming out of that sun in Cancer. All right, so that's a lot of the sign changes there early in the week. Once we do get to about the Thursday time period, we really start to come up to some of the aspects here that will be involved with that new moon. So one of the aspects here is that the sun will be trining up to Neptune. So it's nice to see that there's a little bit of flow, I think, this middle part of the week. Maybe we're just more aligned spiritually. Maybe we're just a little more easygoing. Maybe our intuition or our spiritual connection is stronger. And so a nice support there with the more spiritual, even imaginative, intuitive, willing to go with the flow types of energies. Just all in all, quite supportive this middle part of the week. But Mars will be opposite up to Saturn here around midweek as well. And so here just balancing that sort of short-term fire of Mars with the long-term Earth of Saturn, right? Mars is the side of ourselves that wants things now, and Saturn's the deeper side that wants to make sure things are done right and for the long term, right? It's the more responsible side. So you have our short-term needs opposite our long-term needs, and so a bit of a balance here can be very constructive. The natural tendency might be to go to one extreme or the other at times this middle part of the week, maybe, again, more proactive, more maybe even rash with Mars, but then again, having to balance that out with the more grounding energies of Saturn. But we don't want to go too far into the grounding either. We don't want to get too restrictive or too realistic or too heavy with things to where we're not cultivating some of that proactive energy. So good to find the balance between the short and long-term needs, taking action now, but also doing it diligently, patiently and thinking long term can be a great way of working with that opposition. And that's quite an important aspect we have this week. Again, the middle part of the week to balance out some of that fire and earth there. All right, as we start to get into the Friday time period, we come up to the next aspect of the new moon, and it is the sun opposite up to Pluto. So Friday and Saturday, I think also a good balance between, in this case, the deeper dimensions of life, with the sun starting to focus more on the emotional and personal energies of life with the sun in Cancer. Pluto, also a water type of energy, is helping us see the real raw and deeper elements of life. So again, there might be that tendency to go to over and under extremes with the oppositions, and so we don't want to get too deep, and too much, heavy into the depths and truths, deeper aspects of life. And of course, we don't want to just be willy-nilly either. We want to connect with what is important to us in life. So finding the balance between depth, trust, intimacy, truth, a deeper connection in general, and maybe even facing fears to do that a little bit with balance. Anything that feels like a bit of an inhibition, a bit of a fear, that we can move through constructively with this or express ourselves by doing so, can be a great way of working with that opposition. But again, most importantly, just finding that balance with depth and realness and rawness in our life, as we will need that during this opposition. And so finding the balanced way to do that will be the key. Just very minor with this, Mercury will be trining up to Chiron, so maybe there's some healing that can actually come across quite easier with maybe those communications, or maybe some things to learn about that could be healing, or maybe just the mere act of learning can be quite healing with this as well. All right, so here's where we do get to the retrogrades and the moon going into Virgo. So over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, moon in Virgo, likely a theme around starting to get into the improvement-oriented aspects of things. We'll still have a lot of that fire of Leo and still that protectiveness of Cancer, but with the moon here going into next week, maybe starting to see how we can maybe take care of some things, improve some things, get into details. More of that analytical energy of Virgo can be fantastic. But most notably here is we have the retrogrades. Most notably is Venus. So Venus is going to go station here Saturday and Sunday. And so this is usually an important time to pause a little bit when it comes to our values. And it's really gearing up for what will be until about September 3rd, Venus's retrograde. And the bulk of it will be in Leo. So a lot of it is about maybe reflecting on our values about self-expression and what we value in terms of what is fun and enjoyable and what we're passionate about in life, and maybe approaching some of these things a little bit differently. So enjoying life in a little bit of a different way, experimenting and exploring different values, different enjoyments, and as a result, also with relationships. What do we value in our relationship life as well? And so here maybe also the creative, self-expressive energies in those. But all in all, this week, the weekend, good to pause, good to notice that these things are going to go through a bit of a reflection. And so just sort of gearing up for that, I think, is great. All right, and then Chiron is also going retrograde. This one we usually don't feel quite strongly, but for about the next 6 months, good to maybe internalize a little bit of the healing energy a little bit. Maybe a lot of us might be feeling like taking a little bit of a break with some of the healing stuff, but it's good to experiment and explore new things there. So whether it's physical healing, spiritual, psychological, emotional, whatever it might be, good to, again, maybe pause with it around the weekend and then maybe start to approach that a little bit differently for the coming months here. But we'll notice that mostly next week once Chiron builds his retrograde momentum. All right, and then lastly for the week, Mercury squaring Uranus on Sunday. Maybe a bit of an erratic mind, maybe a little bit hard to relax, maybe a bit of anxiety for some of us. So finding a constructive way to have essentially change and freedom in our day-to-day life, so we can let out some of that short-circuiting or wired or anxious kind of energy that the squares to Uranus can sometimes bring. Everyone's different, of course. But how can we do this? How can we challenge ourselves to change things up a little bit, have a little bit of change in our life, in our routines, in a way that's constructive? Sometimes here it can be communications that are a little bit out of left field, or again, a little short-circuited. So again, being constructive with what we're saying or how we're receiving information, just to make sure that we're not being too, again, rash or erratic or impulsive with squares to Uranus. But again, with intention, how can we get outside of our own comfort zone and have a little bit of a change in how we normally do things and how we normally think about things can be a great way of working with that square to Uranus. All right, so that's a mouthful. We have a lot going on this week. Let's go ahead and just summarize this so that it's very simple. New moon at the beginning of the week. Good to just do a little bit of a reset, see what new arises, and slowly build some new momentum throughout the week. It is right in between Gemini and Cancer, so it's a little bit of this still, learning and practical energy that we've already been involved with. But I think it's really going to be on the Cancerian side of things. How can we focus more on our intrinsic values of life? What's more important to us emotionally and personally in life? And, again, creating that safe and secure environment to do so for ourselves and others. We have the sign changes with the sun, obviously, then going into Cancer, Mercury going into Leo as well, right there at the beginning of the week, just adding to more of that self-expressive energy that's already been there and is still in development for the week. The aspects, a lot of, quite a few, 2 is quite a few oppositions. And so balancing a bit of that short-term fire with long-term patience, right? About midweek with Mars opposite Saturn. But it's nice to see that it's a little bit of flow and a little bit of greater connection to our spiritual selves midweek as well. But the other area of balance is with the depth, right? Constructive ways of depth, truth, and expressing ourselves in that way that's more balanced there. And nice to see there's a little bit of support for the healing stuff as well with the trine to Chiron. And then the retrogrades, mostly just Venus here, which is a pause with our values and gearing up for some reflection on those, but maybe also some healing energy to reflect on as well. And just noticing that around Sunday, maybe finding a constructive way to get outside of our comfort zone, both mentally and in our day-to-day lives a little bit constructively. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not yet signed up for MTZ Insiders, it is a free newsletter where you do get these videos released first before YouTube and extra content not normally released on YouTube. So do sign up down below if you haven't yet. But have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.